Oh, little Tanikaze. I remember when I first retrofitted her, I liked the design of her retrofit skin. It's really adorable. I don't really have anything I can say against it. Now, there are a few retrofit skins that I can really say I really do love the designs for. However, Tanikaze isn't only known to me for her cute retrofit skin. She's also someone that I know that likes to poke people. I mean, it's at least the cute type of poke. I will say, to be completely honest, I feel like she did take a page out of Yamashiro's book there. Although I do feel it'd be a bit lethal if they both did it at the same time. Alright, now we are on to another of the Sakura Empire destroyers. This time around we'll be talking about IJN Tanikaze. Now Tani is a rare destroyer hailing from the faction known for its high torpedo damage destroyers. Will Tanikaze hold true to that reputation, or will she work differently? Not only that, but can she stand out among her fellow destroyer peers even as a rare? It's time we take a look at her and see what she can do. Now for the sake of this video, I'll be comparing against the well-known Ayanami, as I've covered in this series so far. I may also make general references to other ships, but Ayanami will be the main focus that I'll be working with. Anyway, starting off with her survival stats, little Tanikaze sits at a higher health pool than Ayanami. Now destroyers generally don't have high health pools, so keeping them alive can be rough without a healer to help. Nonetheless, looking at her compared to other Sakura Empire destroyers, Tanikaze seems to have a slightly higher than average health pool, even beating several destroyers in higher rarities. This trend seems to be, well, consistent among her sister ships like Hamakaze, Urakaze, and Isokaze. Her armor type is light, so it's important to be careful around any type of HE shell guns, really from any ship. They're all gonna hurt her pretty badly. Now her evasion is a tad bit lower than Ayanami and lower overall when you compare against several other factions. So she's just about as likely to get hit as her Sakura Empire counterparts, and well, she may be less likely to be hit than her Ironblood counterparts. But Royals and Eagles will have a better chance than her at dodging an attack. Lastly, her anti-air stat is relatively low, but again, that's relatively normal for destroyers. If you are wanting anti-air, destroyers really aren't the way to go. Unless you're this tsundere cat or her smug sister. I mean, there are also better options for anti-air, you know, like Isuzu. Oh, right, 7-3. That's, yeah, that's a grind. Well, okay, I guess you all know a very good alternative that can work for the anti-air goddess. Especially since a good number of people should be able to retrofit her now, right everyone? Now, with Tanikaze's offensive stats, her firepower is relatively low. Destroyers generally aren't known for their firepower. Of course, there are a few exceptions to this, but we're not talking about them here. Most destroyers are going to be doing their damage through torpedo attacks, as they are known for their high torpedo stat. Tanikaze actually has a slightly higher torpedo stat than Ayanami, and even beats most of the destroyers in the game. So she'll do considerable damage to ships with their torpedoes, especially heavy armor types. Lastly, her reload is a tad bit slower than Ayanami, so she won't be exactly as quick to get her torpedoes ready to go. In terms of her equipment, her main gun efficiency is rather low, 5% less than Ayanami. Now, with her low firepower and her low main gun efficiency, her overall main gun damage won't be really amounting to much. It might be best to look into giving her a fast firing gun to squeeze out as much damage as possible with her barrage. Now her torpedo efficiency matches Ayanami and is relatively high. This will continue to further help with her dealing decent amounts of damage with her torpedoes. Lastly, her anti-air gun efficiency sits at around average, but with her low anti-air stat, it still won't really amount to much, sadly. Overall, she fits the generalization about Sakura Empire destroyers, which really isn't a bad thing. Now, even at level 120, she receives good boosts to the areas that matter for her, like torpedo, health, and evasion. Now, there's a lot of characters within their own faction that can be combined to pump out some serious crazy damage with torpedoes. However, these character combos work because of their skills. So let's see what Tanikaze has to offer. Now, Tanikaze's blue skill is Miracle Wind, which increases her evasion by up to 10% and reduces damage from airstrikes by up to 50%. This skill only works if she is the last ship alive in the escort fleet, or Vanguard. This skill's perk isn't too bad. The evasion will help her to dodge more, and the damage reduction from airstrikes does help to make up for her low anti-air stat. The only downside is the requirement that is needed for this to activate. Tanikaze has a decent health pool, but in most cases, being the last one standing won't happen often. Most player fleet formations will have tankier ships like cruisers or another certain cat destroyer. Why are there so many cat destroyers I'm talking about in this video? Seriously. Anyway, there will be more tankier ships that will outlast Tanikaze either by health pool or their skills alone. Sure, now you can run her by herself to get the instant proc, but those benefits don't really justify doing so. So in a way, this skill kinda steps on itself and you really won't see it be activated often. Overall, Tanikaze is the classic torpedo-heavy Sakura Empire destroyer, but has a skill that won't see much action. Nonetheless, that's not all there is for her, as she does have a retrofit available. This retrofit continues to focus on what makes her strong. The decent boost to her torpedo and evasion will significantly help her in both survival and damage output. She also gains a skill called Target Designator Torpedo, which modifies her torpedoes with up to a 17% chance to mark the ships that get hit by her torpedoes. If it does proc the mark, the enemy ships will take an additional 40% more torpedo damage for up to 8 seconds. This debuff is incredibly nice as a support ship, and I can see it being pretty nasty if used with Ayanami. Might even make it to where even Warspite is going to have to worry about... Oh, right. Never mind. Unfortunately, the damage buff does come with a low proc chance, so don't expect it to proc very often. Something else to point out with this skill is that it does force the use of torpedo-based cruisers and destroyers to get the most effect out of it. Granted, most people generally use Sakura Empire characters together when they're going torpedo heavy, so I guess this isn't really as much of a concern as it seems. Overall, Tanikaze may have the ability to do considerable torpedo damage, but she is taking a more support-focused role. Alongside Ayanami, she can actually allow Ayanami to put out some serious torpedo damage. Now, granted, there are other ships like Abukuma, Noshiro, and even Jinsu that can also help with this particular area, so it'll depend on who you want to use there. Now, if you lack both Noshiro and Jinsu, then she can make a good backup ship until you actually have them both. However, is she a mob or boss fleet ship? Well, it kind of depends. She can work in both, in all honesty. I mean, I do know that people like to run damage-heavy vanguards for bosses, and that can be done with a good Sakura Empire setup. However, the team that she'll be in will probably have low health, and that could work against them in a boss fight. So you'll definitely have to make some considerations with that group. Also, it's important to know what type of ship you're fighting. Trying to fight a destroyer boss with the torpedo team will not work as well as it would with the battleship boss. In a mob fleet, the health can be a lot less of a concern if there is a healer there to help mitigate the issue. The damage output from them would allow them to clear mobs very quickly, so it'll be easier fights as long as you can keep the health under control. Overall, little Tanikaze does fit the usual Sakura Empire destroyer bit. Unlike most destroyers, she tries her best to help her fellow torpedo-loving ships do more damage with their retrofit. Her skills are rather difficult to get rolling, but will help when they are active. As I mentioned, there are ships that work similar to her, but may take some time to acquire either by event rerun or having to fight through the late game. Tanikaze is like Abukuma and can be obtained within the current base game, and relatively quickly as well if luck works out in your favor. So once Ayanami is obtained, you could actually have a pretty good team set up for torpedo-heavy Sakura Empire if you really wanted early on. However, due to the downside of her skills, it might be better to bring out the more effective light cruisers that also help at setting up a torpedo-heavy team once you've acquired them. But nonetheless, she will make a very good stand-in until those particular characters are collected. And that will be all for little Tanikaze. Hope you enjoyed and that this will help you in your future endeavors. After Nagato, we'll be diving into the next ship on the list, and that is set to be IGN Aoba. As usual, there is a list that I'll be working on with ship reviews, so if you don't see someone that you would like covered, feel free to let me know in the comments. Whether you're a regular viewer or a patron supporting the channel on Patreon, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next livestream or video that I do. And see you guys again real soon.